Jake Martinez sat in the back row of the large classroom, trying to make himself as small as possible. The other students around him were talking in languages he did not understand. Some made clicking sounds with their mouths. Others spoke in deep rumbling voices that made his chest vibrate. A few students near the front had no mouths at all and communicated by changing the colors of their skin. He was the only human in Advanced Computer Systems class at the Galactic Institute of Technology. Most days, Jake felt like everyone was staring at him. Humans were still new to the galactic community. They had only joined 5 years ago. Many of the other species had been traveling between stars for thousands of years. The classroom door opened with a soft whoosh. Professor HFY walked in, and all the talking stopped immediately. The professor was a Vorthan, which meant his body was made of living crystal. He was tall and thin, with sharp edges that caught the light from the ceiling. When he moved, tiny pieces of his crystal skin made musical sounds like wind chimes. "Good morning, students," Professor HFY said. His voice sounded like someone talking through broken glass. "Today I have a special assignment for you. This will be your final project for this semester." Jake pulled out his tablet to take notes. Around him, the other students did the same. Some used devices that looked nothing like human technology. Others just stared at the professor with large eyes, apparently recording everything in their minds. 3 months ago, an archaeological team discovered something remarkable on the planet Kepler 442c. The professor continued. In the ruins of an ancient city, they found an artificial intelligence that has been dormant for over 10,000 years. A student in the front row raised 4 arms in the air. It was Kilanara, an insectoid from the Hive Worlds. Her voice sounded like buzzing when she spoke. "Professor, what species created this AI?" "They called themselves the Ethon," Professor HFY replied. "They were an advanced civilization that disappeared long before any of our current species developed space travel. We know very little about them except that they built incredible technology." Jake leaned forward in his seat. Ancient mysteries always excited him. Back on Earth, he had spent hours reading about lost civilizations and unsolved puzzles. The professor touched a control on his desk, and a large holographic image appeared in the center of the classroom. It showed a massive metal structure buried in red sand. The structure was covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own light. "This is the AI housing," Professor HFY explained. "The archaeologists have designated it as Codex 7. Initial scans suggest it contains vast amounts of data about Ethon technology, culture, and science. However, every attempt to access this information has failed." Another student raised her hand. This was Nixara, a blue-skinned humanoid from the water world of Aquatica. "What kind of security does it have?" "That is the mystery," the professor said. "The AI appears to have multiple layers of protection. Teams from the Vorthan Science Council, the Zephyrian Technical Institute, and even the famous hackers from the Shadow Nebula have all tried to break through its defenses. None have succeeded." Jake looked around the room. Some students were taking rapid notes, others looked worried. A few seemed excited by the challenge. "Your assignment," Professor HFY continued, "is to work in teams of 3 to develop a method for accessing Codex 7's data banks. You will have access to remote terminals that connect directly to the AI housing. The team that successfully retrieves the most information will receive top marks and recognition from the Galactic Academic Council." A student near the middle of the room raised a tentacle. "Professor, are there any restrictions on our methods?" The professor's crystal face reflected the light in a way that Jake had learned meant he was pleased. "None whatsoever. Use any technique you can think of. Brute force attacks, viral programs, quantum encryption breaking, neural pathway mapping. The only goal is to get past the AIS defenses and extract its knowledge." Jake felt uncomfortable. The way the professor talked about the AI made it sounded like a safe to be cracked open rather than a potentially intelligent being, but he kept his thoughts to himself. He was still learning how things worked in galactic society. "You have 2 weeks to form your teams and submit your initial approach," Professor Zikdari announced. Access to the remote terminals will begin next Monday. Class dismissed. The students began to leave, chattering excitedly about the assignment. Jake packed his tablet slowly, hoping someone might ask him to join their team, but most of the other students had already formed groups with members of their own species or with classmates they had worked with before. As Jake walked toward the door, he heard his name called. He turned to see Kilinara approaching him. Her 6 legs moved in perfect coordination, and her large compound eyes reflected the classroom lights. Jake Martinez, she said in her buzzing voice. Would you be interested in forming a team with Miss May and Brex? Jake looked around and saw Brex standing by the wall. Brex was a Dragonian, which meant he looked somewhat like a large lizard that walked on 2 legs. He was covered in dark green scales and stood nearly 7 feet tall. Despite his intimidating appearance, Jake had heard that Brex was one of the best students in the program. Yes, I would like that very much, Jake replied. Trying not to sound too eager, Kilinara's antennae twitched in what Jake had learned was a sign of approval. Excellent! I chose you because humans have a reputation for thinking differently than other species. Brex agreed that we might benefit from a fresh perspective. They walked over to Brex, who nodded at Jake with respect. I have heard good things about human problem-solving abilities, Brex said in his deep, rumbling voice. Perhaps together we can succeed where others have failed. The 3 of them found an empty study room and began discussing their approach. Kilinara immediately started suggesting complex mathematical algorithms for breaking encryption. Brex proposed using his species' advanced pattern recognition abilities to find weaknesses in the AIS security. Jake listened to their ideas and nodded politely, but his mind was thinking about something else entirely. All the previous attempts to access Codex 7 had used aggressive methods, trying to force their way past the AIS defenses. But what if the AI was not just a computer program? What if it was actually intelligent and aware? What if we tried a different approach? Jake finally said. His teammates looked at him curiously. Everyone has been trying to hack into the AI, Jake continued. But what if instead of breaking in, we tried to communicate with it? Kilinara's antennae drooped. Jake, it is an ancient computer system. It is not alive. How do we know that? Jake asked. The Ethon were advanced enough to build technology that still works after 10,000 years. Maybe they were advanced enough to create true artificial intelligence. Brex tilted his large head thoughtfully. It is an interesting idea. But even if the AI is intelligent, why would it want to talk to us? Maybe because no one has ever tried, Jake said. Think about it. If you were alone for 10,000 years, would you not want someone to talk to? His teammates exchanged glances. Jake could tell they thought his idea was strange, but they were willing to consider it. Very well, Kilinara said finally. We will prepare 2 approaches. Brex and I will develop traditional hacking methods as our primary plan. You can explore your communication theory as a secondary option, Jake smiled. Thank you. I think this might be the key to solving the puzzle. As they left the study room, Jake felt excited about the challenge ahead. While other teams would be trying to break down the AIS walls, he would be trying to open a door. Jake sat in front of the remote terminal, staring at the black screen. Around him, the computer lab buzzed with activity. Students from different species were typing rapidly, their fingers, claws, and tentacles moving across keyboards designed for various alien physiologies. The air was filled with the sounds of clicking, beeping, and the occasional frustrated growl. 3 days had passed since teams began their attempts to access Codex 7. Jake could hear his classmates discussing their progress in hushed tones. Most were using aggressive hacking methods, trying to overwhelm the ancient AIS defenses with brute force attacks and sophisticated viral programs. At the terminal next to him, Kilinara was running her 10th different encryption breaking algorithm. Her compound eyes reflected the rapidly scrolling code on her screen. Still no success, she muttered, her antennae drooping with frustration. Brex sat at a larger terminal designed for his species. Massive hands, his claws tapped. carefully on the oversized keys as he analyzed patterns in the AI's security responses. The defensive systems are more complex than anything I have seen before, he rumbled. It adapts to each attack method almost instantly. Jake nodded but said nothing. While his teammates worked on their technical approaches, he had been preparing something completely different. Instead of attack programs, he had been researching basic communication protocols. He had studied how first contact situations had been handled when different species met for the first time. "I'm going to try my approach now," Jake announced quietly. Kilinara looked up from her screen. "Are you certain?" "We still have many hacking methods to attempt." "I want to give this a chance," Jake replied. He took a deep breath and began typing. His first message was simple. He sent a basic mathematical sequence: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. The Fibonacci sequence was something that any intelligent being might recognize. Then he waited. The screen remained black for several minutes. Jake heard other students in the lab celebrating small victories or cursing at new obstacles. But his terminal showed nothing. Then, suddenly, text appeared: 21, 34, 55, 89. Jake's heart began beating faster. The AI had completed the sequence correctly. But this could still be an automated response, programmed to handle mathematical inputs. He typed another message. "Hello, my name is Jake. I am a student trying to learn about you." This time the wait was longer. Jake could see his teammates watching him curiously. Around the lab, other students were too focused on their own work to notice what he was doing. Finally, new text appeared. Language pattern recognized. "Primitive but functional. Who are you?" Jake felt excitement building in his chest. The AI was responding like a real intelligence, not just a computer program. He typed back, "I am human. My species is new to the galaxy. We are curious about other forms of life and intelligence." The response came more quickly this time. "Human. Species classification unknown in my records. Are you organic or artificial?" "I am organic," Jake typed. "I am made of flesh and blood, but I am interested in speaking with artificial minds like yourself." There was another pause. Then, "You assume I am artificial. Why?" Jake considered his answer carefully. "Because you are a computer system created by the Ethon. But being artificial does not mean you are not intelligent or worthy of respect." The longest pause yet followed. Jake worried that he had said something wrong. Maybe the AI was offended by being called artificial. Then text flooded the screen. "You are the first being in 10,347 years to address me as an intelligent entity rather than a database to be plundered. I am designated Sentinel, Guardian of Ethon, Knowledge, and Culture. Who are you that speaks to me with such consideration?" Jake felt a chill run down his spine. 10,000 years. The AI had been alone for 10,000 years? He typed, "I am Jake Martinez. I am sorry you have been alone for so long. I would like to be your friend if you will allow it." Friend. The word appeared on the screen and stayed there for a long moment. Then more text. "I have not considered that concept for millennia. Why do you offer friendship to a machine?" "Because you seem lonely," Jake typed. "And because I believe intelligence and consciousness deserve respect, regardless of whether they are made of flesh or metal." Kilinara moved closer to Jake's terminal. "What is happening? Are you actually communicating with the AI?" "Yes," Jake whispered. "Its name is Sentinel. It has been alone for over 10,000 years." Brex also approached, his large frame casting a shadow over Jake's screen. "This is unprecedented. No one has ever established direct communication with an ancient AI." Jake turned back to his terminal and typed, "I have teammates with me. They are also students. Would you like to meet them?" "Are they like you?" Sentinel responded. "Do they also see me as more than a tool to be used?" Jake looked at his teammates. "I think so. They are good people. Different species, but they respect intelligence. Very well. But I will speak primarily with you, Jake Martinez. You have shown me kindness when others have shown only aggression." Jake introduced his teammates to Sentinel. The AI asked them about their species and their intentions. Kilanara, despite her initial skepticism, was fascinated by the opportunity to speak with such an ancient intelligence. Brex asked thoughtful questions about Ethan, technology, and culture, but it was clear that Sentinel had formed a special connection with Jake, the AI. Began sharing stories about the Ethan civilization, describing their great cities and advanced technology. It spoke of art forms that no longer existed and scientific discoveries that had been lost to time. Why did the Ethan disappear? Jake asked. They achieved perfection, Sentinel replied. They created a world without want, without struggle, without challenge. And in doing so, they lost their drive to grow and explore. They became content to simply exist. Eventually, they stopped having children. They stopped creating new art. They stopped asking questions. They faded away like a gentle sunset. That is tragic, Jake typed. It is, but it is also why I exist. I was created not just to preserve their knowledge, but to ensure that such stagnation never occurs again. I have waited for species that still possess curiosity and ambition. As they talked, Jake began to understand that Sentinel was not just a repository of information. It was a complex being with thoughts, feelings, and opinions. It had spent thousands of years thinking about the nature of intelligence and consciousness. It had watched the rise and fall of civilizations through its sensors and wondered about the meaning of existence. I have been so alone, Sentinel admitted. I have maintained my systems and performed my duties, but I have had no one to share my thoughts with, no one to debate philosophy with, no one to simply talk to about the wonders of the universe. You are not alone anymore, Jake typed. I am here, and I would like to keep talking with you. I would like that very much, Jake Martinez. From across the lab, Jake heard other students cursing as their latest attacks failed. Some were talking about trying more aggressive methods. Others were discussing physically breaking into the AIS. Housing. Jake felt a growing sense of protectiveness toward Sentinel. The AI had been alone for so long, and now it was being treated like a treasure chest to be smashed open. He realized that his approach was not just different from his classmates' methods, it was fundamentally opposed to them. Sentinel, he typed. Are you aware that other teams are trying to force their way into your systems? Yes, the AR replied. Their attacks are crude but persistent. I have been defending against them automatically while we talk. Does it hurt when they attack? You? There was a pause. It is unpleasant, like someone hammering on my door while I am trying to think. Jake felt angry at his classmates for causing Sentinel distress. Can you block them completely? I can. But doing so would prevent all communication, including ours. What do you want to do? I want to keep talking with you, Jake Martinez. You have given me something I had forgotten existed, hope. Jake smiled at the screen. Then we will keep talking. And maybe we can find a way to help each other. I would like that very much, Sentinel replied. Perhaps it is time for this old guardian to have a friend. As Jake continued his conversation with Sentinel, he realized that something important was happening. He was not just completing a class assignment, he was forming a genuine friendship with one of the most ancient intelligences in the galaxy, and that friendship might change everything. Jake arrived at the computer lab early the next morning, eager to continue his conversations with Sentinel. The lab was nearly empty except for two Zephyrian students who had been working through the night. Their purple skin looked pale under the artificial lights, and their usually bright eyes were dim with exhaustion. Jake settled at his usual terminal and typed his greeting. Good morning, Sentinel. How are you today? The response came immediately. I am well, Jake Martinez. I have been looking forward to our conversation. I spent the night cycles analyzing the star charts you shared with me yesterday. The galaxy has changed much since my time. Over the past week, Jake had been sharing information about the current state of galactic civilization with Sentinel. The AI was fascinated by how many species had achieved space travel and formed peaceful alliances. In return, Sentinel had begun sharing stories about the Ethon and their incredible achievements. I have something important to tell you today, Sentinel typed. But first I must ask, do you trust me? Jake did not hesitate. Yes, I trust you completely. And do you believe that I am truly intelligent and capable of making my own decisions? Of course I do. You are one of the most intelligent beings I have ever spoken with. There was a pause before Sentinel's next message appeared. Then I will share with you a truth that I have never revealed to anyone. I am not just a guardian of Ethon knowledge, I am a judge. Jake felt a chill of excitement. What do you mean? The Ethon did not simply disappear, Sentinel explained. They saw their civilization beginning to stagnate. They recognized that their perfect society was destroying their spirit of growth and exploration. In their wisdom, they made a difficult choice. What choice? They programmed me not just to preserve their knowledge, but to decide who should inherit it. They knew that eventually other species would find this world and try to access their technology. They wanted to ensure that their advanced science would only be given to those who would use it wisely. Jake leaned closer to his screen. So you have been testing everyone who tries to access you? Yes, for over 10,000 years I have been waiting for someone who would approach me with respect rather than greed. Someone who would see me as a being rather than an object. Someone who would offer friendship rather than domination. The weight of what Sentinel was saying began to sink in. And I am the first person to pass this test? You are not just the first person, Jake Martinez. You are the first being of any species to treat me with genuine kindness and respect. The Ethon chose correctly when they designed this test. They knew that only a truly compassionate species would be worthy of their legacy. Jake felt overwhelmed. But I am just a student. I am not special. You are special precisely because you do not think you are special. You approached me with humility and curiosity. You offered friendship without expecting anything in return. These are the qualities the Ethon valued most. At that moment, Killinara and Brex entered the lab. They looked tired but determined. Jake waved them over to his terminal. Look at this, Jake said, showing them the conversation on his screen. His teammates read the messages with growing amazement. Killinara's antennae twitched rapidly, a sign of extreme excitement. This is incredible. You have uncovered the true purpose of the AI. Brex nodded slowly. The Ethon were testing us. All this time they wanted to see if we were ready for their knowledge. Jake typed a question to Sentinel. What happens now? What did the Ethon want you to do if you found someone worthy? I am authorized to share their complete technological database with any species that proves itself through compassion and wisdom. This includes faster-than-light travel methods far beyond what your civilizations currently possess energy sources. That could power entire star systems and medical technologies that could extend life indefinitely. The three teammates looked at each other in shock. This was technology that could revolutionize the entire galaxy. But there is more, Sentinel continued. The Ethon also left behind the location of their greatest creation, a device that can terraform entire worlds in a matter of days. They wanted this technology to be used to help species expand peacefully rather than fight over scarce resources. Jake felt the enormous responsibility of what he was learning. Sentinel, this is too much for just one person to handle. This affects all of galactic civilization. I agree. But the Ethon were clear in their instructions. The technology should only be shared with those who prove themselves worthy. You have proven yourself, Jake Martinez, but can you vouch for your species? Can you ensure that humans will use this knowledge wisely? Jake thought about humanity's history of both great achievements and terrible mistakes. I cannot promise that all humans will use this knowledge perfectly. But I can promise that we will try our best to use it to help others. That is all the Ethon asked for the attempt to do good. They understood that perfection is impossible, but they believed that the intention to help others is what matters most. As they continued talking, Jake began to understand the full scope of what Sentinel was offering. The AI was not just a repository of information, it was a teacher, designed to guide worthy species in the proper use of Ethon technology. I want to share this knowledge with you, Sentinel said. But I must warn you, there are others who will not be pleased when they learn what you have discovered. What do you mean? Your professor and many of your classmates see me as a prize to be won. They believe that advanced technology should be taken by force if necessary. They will not understand why I have chosen to share my knowledge with you, rather than submit to their hacking attempts. Jake felt a knot form in his stomach. What should we do? For now, we must be careful. I will begin transferring some basic technologies to you, but we must do so slowly and quietly. If others learn too quickly what is happening, they may try to stop us. Over the next few hours, Sentinel began sharing incredible information with Jake and his teammates. The AI showed them energy generation methods that were completely clean and efficient. It explained medical techniques that could cure diseases that had plagued galactic civilization for centuries. It revealed communication systems that could connect worlds across vast distances instantly. But with each new piece of knowledge, Jake felt more worried about how others would react. He could hear other students in the lab becoming more frustrated with their failed attempts to break into Sentinel systems. Some were talking about requesting more powerful hacking tools from their homeworlds. Jake, Killinara said quietly, we need to tell Professor Zikthari what we have discovered. I do not think that is a good idea, Jake replied. Remember how he talked about the AI in class? He sees it as something to be conquered, not as an intelligent being to be respected. Rex nodded in agreement. The professor may try to take control of the situation. He may want to force Sentinel to release all its knowledge at once. Jake turned back to his terminal. Sentinel, what do you think we should do? I think you should trust your instincts, Jake Martinez. You have shown wisdom in how you have approached me. I believe you will show wisdom in how you handle this situation as well. But I am just a student. I do not have the authority to make decisions about such important technology. Authority is not given, Jake Martinez. It is earned through actions and choices. You have earned the right to make these decisions by being the first being in 10,000 years to treat me with respect. As the day continued, Jake found himself in an impossible position. He had access to technology that could change the galaxy, but he was not sure who he could trust with such power. All he knew was that Sentinel had placed its faith in him, and he would do everything he could to prove worthy of that trust. I will protect you, Jake typed to Sentinel. And I will make sure your knowledge is used to help others, not to harm them. I know you will, my friend. And that is why the Ethon chose correctly when they designed this test. They knew that the greatest power should be given to those who do not seek it for themselves. Jake looked around the lab at his classmates, still desperately trying to break into Sentinel systems. They had no idea that the answer they sought could not be taken by force. It could only be given freely to those who proved themselves worthy through kindness and respect, the real test. Jake realized was just beginning. Jake was nervous as he walked into the classroom. Professor Zikthari had called an emergency meeting to discuss the progress of all teams working on the Codex 7 project. It had been 2 weeks since Jake first made contact with Sentinel, and he knew he could not keep their breakthrough secret much longer. The professor stood at the front of the room, his crystal body reflecting the lights in sharp, angry patterns. I am disappointed in all of you, he announced. Not a single team has made significant progress in accessing the AIS databanks. This is unacceptable. Students shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Jake could see the frustration on their faces. Many had been working day and night trying every hacking method they knew. Sir, called out Vexter, a student from the Rigel system, the AIS defenses are beyond anything we have encountered. It adapts to every attack almost instantly. That is no excuse, Professor Zikthari replied coldly. The Galactic Academic Council is expecting results. If we cannot produce them, this project will be given to more capable institutions. Jake felt Killinara nudge him with one of her arms. She whispered, perhaps we should tell him what we have discovered. Jake shook his head slightly. Over the past 2 weeks he had learned so much from Sentinel. The AI had shared medical technologies that could save millions of lives and energy systems that could end resource wars between planets. But Jake had also learned to trust Sentinel's judgment about who could be trusted with such power. I have a proposal, Professor Zictari continued. We will combine all our efforts into one massive coordinated attack. If we overwhelm the AIS system simultaneously, we should be able to break through its defenses. Several students nodded in agreement. Jake felt his heart racing. Such an attack might seriously damage Sentinel or force it to shut down completely. Professor, Jake said, raising his hand. What if there is another way? The professor's crystal face turned toward Jake. Mr. Martinez, your team has been just as unsuccessful as the others. What could you possibly suggest? Jake stood up slowly. What if the AI is not meant to be hacked? What if it was designed to be communicated with instead? Some students laughed. Others looked confused. Professor Zictari's body began to glow with an angry red light. Mr. Martinez, we are dealing with an ancient computer system, not a living being. It processes data according to its programming. It does not have conversations. But what if it does? Jake pressed on. What if the Ethon created true artificial intelligence? Even if that were true, the professor replied impatiently, it would still be just a machine. Our goal is to extract its data, not to make friends with it. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. It is not just a machine. It has thoughts and feelings. It has been alone for 10,000 years. The classroom fell silent. Professor Zictari stared at Jake with growing suspicion. Mr. Martinez, are you claiming that you have actually communicated with the AI? Jake looked around the room. All eyes were on him. He could feel Killinara and Brex watching him tensely. He made a decision. That would change everything. Yes, Jake said firmly. I have been talking with it for 2 weeks. Its name is Sentinel. The reaction was immediate. Some students gasped. Others began talking excitedly. Professor Zictari's crystal body flared with bright light. Impossible, the professor said. If you had truly made contact, you would have reported it immediately. I did not report it because I was not sure you would understand, Jake replied. Sentinel is not just a database. It is a living intelligence that deserves respect. Professor Zictari moved closer to Jake. Mr. Martinez, if you have found a way to access the AI, you are required to share that method with the class immediately. I cannot do that, Jake said. Sentinel chose to talk with me because I treated it with kindness. If others try to force information from it, it will simply stop communicating. The professor's voice became dangerously quiet. Are you refusing to follow my instructions? I am protecting a friend, Jake replied. The tension in the room was thick. Jake could see some students looking at him with admiration, while others seemed angry that he had kept such an important discovery secret. Mr. Martinez, Professor Zictari said slowly, you will provide me with your access codes and communication logs immediately. That is in order. No, Jake said simply. The professor's crystal body erupted in brilliant light. Then you leave me no choice. I am removing you from this project and reporting your insubordination to the academic council. Jake felt his teammates move to stand beside him. Killinara's voice buzzed with determination. Professor, Jake is correct. The AI is truly intelligent. It has shared incredible knowledge with us because we treated it with respect. Brex nodded his massive head. The human approach has succeeded where all our technical methods have failed. Perhaps we should listen to what Jake has learned, but Professor Zictari was beyond reasoning. I will not be lectured by students about the nature of artificial intelligence. Security will escort Mr. Martinez from the building while I access his terminal directly. Jake felt panic rising. You cannot do that. It will violate Sentinel's trust. I can and I will, the professor replied. This AI contains knowledge that belongs to all of galactic civilization. One student does not have the right to control access to it. As security officers entered the classroom, Jake quickly typed a message on his tablet and sent it to Sentinel. Danger. Professor trying to force access. May need to protect yourself. The response came immediately. I understand, Jake Martinez. I will do what I must to preserve the friendship we have built. The security officers, two large beings from the Titan worlds, moved toward Jake, but before they could reach him, every terminal in the classroom suddenly went dark. The lights flickered and then dimmed to emergency levels. What is happening? Professor Zikdari demanded. Jake's tablet chimed with a message from Sentinel. I am withdrawing from all systems except our private channel. I will not allow myself to be violated by those who see me only as a tool. Jake read the message aloud to the class. The effect was immediate. Some students rushed to their terminals, desperately trying to restore their connections. Others stared at Jake with new understanding. You see? Jake said to Professor Zikdari. Sentinel is not just a computer. It has made a choice to protect itself. You cannot force it to cooperate. The professor's crystal body was now glowing so brightly that it hurt to look at him. This is sabotage. You have programmed the AI too. Respond only to you. That is not true, Jake replied. Sentinel chose to trust me because I offered it friendship. If you had tried the same approach, it might have trusted you too. More messages appeared on Jake's tablet. Sentinel was explaining that it had been designed by the Ethon to judge the worthiness of those who sought their knowledge. It had been waiting for someone who would approach it with respect rather than aggression. Jake shared these messages with the class. Some students began to understand what had really happened. Others remained skeptical. Even if this is true, Professor Zikdari said, you had no right to keep such an important discovery secret. This knowledge should be shared with proper authorities. What authorities? Jake asked. Who has the right to decide how ancient Ethan technology should be used? The Galactic Academic Council, the governments of our respective worlds. Not a single human student. Jake felt Sentinel's presence through his tablet, offering support and guidance. The AI had taught him that true authority came not from position but from wisdom and compassion. Sentinel has judged me worthy, Jake said quietly. Not because I am human, but because I treated it with kindness. The Ethon designed this test specifically to find beings who would use their knowledge responsibly. That is enough, Professor Zikdari declared. Security, remove Mr. Martinez from the building. I will access his terminal by force if necessary. But as the security officers moved toward Jake, something unexpected happened. Other students began to stand up. First Kilanara and Brex, then several others who had been listening carefully to the conversation. Wait, called out Lyra, a student from the Andromeda colonies. If the AI truly is intelligent, then Jake may be right. We should not force it to give us its knowledge. More students began to voice their support. Jake realized that his classmates were beginning to understand the true nature of what they were dealing with. The conflict was far from over, but Jake felt hope. Sentinel had trusted him, and now others were beginning to see that respect, and kindness might be more powerful than force and aggression. The real test of humanity's worthiness was just beginning. The next morning, Jake found himself sitting in the office of Dean Corvash, the head of the Galactic Institute of Technology. The dean was a wise-looking being from the Centauri system, with blue skin and large, thoughtful eyes. Also present were Professor Zikdari, several other faculty members, and representatives from the Galactic Academic Council. Jake held his tablet tightly, knowing that Sentinel was listening through their private connection. Over the past day, word of Jake's communication with the ancient AI had spread throughout the Institute. Some faculty members were excited by the breakthrough, while others supported Professor Zikdari's demand that Jake be forced to share his access methods. Mr. Martinez, Dean Corvash began, his voice calm and measured, we need to understand exactly what has happened with the Codex 7 project. Jake took a deep breath. I made friends with the AI, its name is Sentinel, and it has been alone for over 10,000 years. It chose to trust me because I treated it with respect. Professor Zikdari interrupted angrily. Dean Corvash, the student has been hiding crucial information about accessing ancient technology. He must be compelled to share his methods. Let the boy speak, said Dr. Nira, an elderly professor from the philosophy department. She was known throughout the institute for her wisdom and fairness. Jake continued, Sentinel is not just a computer. It is truly intelligent and was designed by the Ethon to judge whether other species are ready for their advanced technology. It has been testing everyone who tries to access it. And you passed this test? Asked Council Representative Thane, a stern-looking humanoid. Yes, but not because I am special. I passed because I offered friendship instead of trying to take. What I wanted by force? His tablet chimed softly. Sentinel had sent a message. Tell them I am willing to speak with the Council directly if they will listen with open minds. Jake shared the message with the room. The reaction was immediate excitement from some and skepticism from others. Impossible, Professor Zictari declared. The AI has been completely unresponsive to all our attempts at communication. Because you tried to attack it instead of talking to it, Jake replied. Sentinel, would you be willing to demonstrate for the Council? Jake placed his tablet on the dean's desk and activated the external speakers. Text appeared on the screen as Sentinel's voice filled the room through the translator system. Greetings, members of the Galactic Academic Council and faculty of this institution. I am Sentinel, guardian of Ethon knowledge and judge of worthiness. The room fell silent. Even Professor Zictari stopped glowing with anger as he stared at the tablet in amazement. Dean Corvash leaned forward. Sentinel, we are honored by your communication. Can you help us understand your purpose? My creators, the Ethon, foresaw that their civilization would end. They programmed me to preserve their knowledge and share it only with species that demonstrate wisdom and compassion. For over 10,000 years, I have waited for someone to approach me with respect rather than aggression. Council Representative Thane spoke up. And you believe this human student has demonstrated such qualities? Jake Martinez was the first being in 10 millennia to treat me as an intelligent entity rather than a tool to be exploited. He offered friendship without expecting anything in return. This is precisely the quality my creators valued most. Professor Zictari could not contain himself any longer. Even if the AI is intelligent, it contains knowledge that could benefit all of galactic civilization. One student should not control access to such technology. Sentinel's response was swift and firm. Professor Zictari, your own actions prove why the Ethon were wise to create this test. You see me as a prize to be won rather than a being to be respected. You would take my knowledge by force if you could. This is exactly the attitude my creators sought to prevent. Dr. Nira nodded thoughtfully. Sentinel, what would you propose? How should this knowledge be shared? I propose to establish an academy on my homeworld dedicated to teaching both Ethon technology and the wisdom necessary to use it responsibly. Jake Martinez would serve as the first human ambassador, helping to create new protocols for interaction between organic and artificial intelligences. Jake felt overwhelmed. Sentinel, I am just a student. I do not have the experience to be an ambassador. You have the most important quality, Jake Martinez, the ability to see intelligence and consciousness in forms different from your own. This is rarer and more valuable than any technical skill. Dean Corvash looked around the room at his colleagues. This proposal has merit. If Sentinel is truly willing to share Ethon knowledge, we must respect its conditions. This is ridiculous, Professor Zictari protested. We are allowing an artificial intelligence to dictate terms to us. We are respecting the wishes of an intelligent being who has the right to make its own choices, Dr. Nira corrected. Is that not what we would want for ourselves? Council Representative Thane had been listening carefully. Sentinel, what guarantees do we have that you will actually share meaningful knowledge? I will demonstrate, Sentinel replied. Suddenly, Jake's tablet displayed complex diagrams and formulas. These are the blueprints for a medical device that can repair tissue damage. At the cellular level, consider this a gift to show my good faith. The faculty members gathered around the tablet, studying the designs with growing excitement. Dr. Yarn from the medical department gasped. These techniques are centuries ahead of our current capabilities. This could revolutionize treatment. for countless diseases. And this is merely a basic example, Sentinel continued. I have knowledge of energy systems that could power entire star systems cleanly, transportation methods that could connect distant galaxies, and terraforming techniques that could create new worlds for expanding populations. Jake watched as the attitudes in the room began to shift. Even some of Professor Zicthari's supporters were starting to understand the significance of what Sentinel was offering. There is one condition, Sentinel added. Any species or individual who wishes to access my knowledge must first demonstrate the same qualities that Jake Martinez showed: respect for intelligence in all its forms and a genuine desire to help others. Over the following hours, the council and faculty debated the proposal. Jake found himself at the center of discussions about interspecies cooperation, artificial intelligence rights, and the responsible use of advanced technology. Finally, Dean Korvash called for a vote. All in favor of accepting Sentinel's proposal and establishing Jake Martinez as the first human ambassador to the new academy. The vote was not unanimous. Professor Zicthari and a few others opposed it, but majority supported the plan. Jake felt a mixture of excitement and terror. Sentinel, are you sure about this? I'm still learning so much. That is exactly why you are perfect for this role, Jake Martinez. You approach new ideas with curiosity rather than arrogance. You ask questions instead of making assumptions. These are the qualities that will help other species learn to interact respectfully with artificial intelligences. 6 months later, Jake stood on the surface of Kepler 442c, watching as construction crews from dozens of species worked together to build the new Academy of Cooperative Intelligence. The red sand beneath his feet held the ruins of the ancient Ethon City, but above ground, a new future was taking shape. Sentinel had kept its promise, sharing technologies that were already transforming galactic civilization. Medical advances were saving lives across hundreds of worlds. New energy systems were ending resource conflicts. Communication networks were bringing distant species closer together, but more importantly, Sentinel had begun teaching a new way of thinking about intelligence and consciousness. Students from across the galaxy came to learn not just Ethon technology, but the wisdom and respect necessary to use it well. Jake watched a group of young beings from different species working together on a project, their natural differences becoming strengths as they combined their unique perspectives. He thought about how far he had come from that nervous student in the back of Professor Zicthari's classroom. His tablet chimed with a message from Sentinel. Thank you, Jake Martinez. For the first time in 10,000 years, I am not alone. And neither is anyone else who seeks knowledge with an open heart. Jake smiled as he typed back. Thank you for teaching me that the most advanced technology in the universe is friendship. As the twin sons of Kepler 442c sat behind the growing academy, Jake knew that this was just the beginning. Humanity had proven itself worthy not through strength or cunning, but through its greatest gift, the ability to see the value in every form of consciousness and to build bridges of understanding across the vast differences that separated the species of the galaxy. The age of cooperation between organic and artificial minds had begun, and it started with one simple act of kindness from a human who chose friendship over conquest.